Imagine this: the moment you close your eyes tonight, your body begins to rest, but your subconscious mind, the operating system that runs 95% of your life, keeps listening. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't shut down. And what you allow it to listen to becomes the program it will run tomorrow. Now, what if I told you that one night, just one night, is enough to plant a seed so powerful it could begin to rewire the very patterns you've been trapped in for years? See, the subconscious mind doesn't change through willpower or effort alone. It changes through repetition, through emotion, and through energy. Every time you hear the same suggestion, the same thought, the same feeling, your brain begins to fire and wire new connections. And when you combine that with the relaxed, fertile state of sleep, you open the door to transformation at the deepest level. Tonight could be that door for you. So the question is, are you willing to step beyond the familiar? Are you willing to give yourself permission to surrender just one night? To allow the subconscious to do the work while you rest? Because when you wake up, you won't just feel rested, you'll feel different. And when you feel different, you'll begin to act different. And when you act different, your entire reality will begin to shift. The subconscious mind is one of the most mysterious and powerful aspects of human existence, and yet it operates quietly, almost invisibly, beneath the surface of our awareness. Most people assume that when they close their eyes at night, they enter a state of complete unconsciousness where nothing truly happens except the body's natural process of rest and recovery. But the truth is far deeper and far more fascinating. Even as your conscious mind slips away into the dream state, your subconscious mind remains wide awake. It never stops listening, never stops absorbing, and never stops responding to the signals, thoughts, emotions, and patterns it has been fed throughout the day. Imagine it as a constant recording device, one that is always capturing, always storing, and always preparing to play back whatever it has taken in. And this recording is not a neutral process. It is the foundation on which your behaviors, habits, and perceptions are built. Every word you say to yourself, every suggestion you allow into your mental environment, and every emotion that flows through your body is being etched into the operating system that governs the majority of your life. This is why what you expose yourself to before sleep matters so profoundly. Your subconscious mind does not shut down when your eyes close. In fact, it becomes even more suggestible. During sleep, the brain cycles through different frequencies. In the deep, relaxed states that border on sleep, the hypnagogic state as you drift off and the hypnopompic state as you awaken, your mind is especially open, pliable, and ready to accept new information. These states are characterized by slower brainwave patterns, often in the theta range, which is the same frequency children operate in during their early developmental years. Think of it this way. When you were young, from birth to around age 7, your brain was in theta more often than not, which is why you absorbed language, cultural norms, emotional responses, and beliefs with almost no filter. You didn't analyze or argue with what you were told, you simply accepted it as reality. That process doesn't vanish when you grow older, it simply becomes less obvious. In sleep, you return to that receptive mode, and the subconscious is once again open to being shaped. Now, if we understand that the subconscious is constantly listening, constantly programming itself based on input, then the question becomes, what are you feeding it? For most people, unfortunately, the answer is negative thoughts, worries, and the residue of stress accumulated throughout the day. The mind replays arguments, failures, doubts, and fears like a broken record. You may think you are just worrying, but to the subconscious, every worry is a command. It does not distinguish between imagination and reality. When you visualize a terrifying scenario, when you tell yourself you're not good enough, when you repeatedly dwell on mistakes, your subconscious registers these as truths. It says, very well, this is the program you want me to run. And the next day, you wake up and find yourself acting out the same self-sabotaging behaviors, repeating the same emotional cycles, and perceiving life through the same distorted lens. But imagine if you could consciously flip that script. Imagine if instead of allowing the subconscious to absorb random fragments of worry and doubt, you could guide it toward absorbing intentional, empowering, life-giving suggestions. That is the opportunity presented when you listen to positive, affirming, and transformative content as you drift into sleep. The subconscious mind is like fertile soil. Whatever seed you plant in it, whether it be fear, guilt, hope, or love, will grow. And because it is most receptive when you are at rest, the seeds planted at night have a unique power to take root deeply. Listening to carefully chosen words, affirmations, or meditative guidance before sleep essentially bypasses the gatekeeping function of the analytical conscious mind. The subconscious takes the message in raw form and begins to align your inner world with it. To understand this better, consider how advertisements work. You may not pay attention to every commercial you see or hear, but your subconscious is recording them nonetheless. Later, when you are at the store, you feel a pull toward the product you saw, even though you don't consciously remember the ad. That is the power of suggestion acting on the subconscious. Now apply this principle to your personal growth. If your mind can be influenced by a 30-second commercial you barely noticed, imagine what consistent, deliberate, positive programming can do when you relax into sleep and allow empowering suggestions to saturate your subconscious for hours. This is not wishful thinking. It is neuroscience. Neurons that fire together wire together. When a message is repeated with emotion, it strengthens the neural pathways that represent that thought pattern. The subconscious listens when you sleep, and in listening, it reshapes the connections of your brain. Think about how dreams work. Dreams often reflect fragments of your day, unresolved emotions, or deeply stored memories. They are the subconscious mind's way of processing and reorganizing the vast amount of information it has absorbed. Even in the bizarre, illogical imagery of dreams, the subconscious is speaking in symbols, showing you that it is always active, always integrating. When you fall asleep listening to intentional affirmations or guided visualizations, those inputs mingle with your dream state, embedding themselves into the symbolic language of your subconscious. Over time, this repetition changes the dominant narrative of your inner world. Instead of carrying fear into your dreams and waking life, you carry empowerment, gratitude, or calmness. Instead of programming failure, you program resilience. It is crucial to grasp that the subconscious does not argue, it accepts. If you tell it, "I am unworthy," it accepts. If you tell it, "I am powerful and capable of transformation," it accepts. The conscious mind in its waking analytical state is quick to doubt, quick to dismiss. But when the conscious mind is relaxed, as it is in the liminal state between wakefulness and sleep, that doubt softens. The words and emotions you expose yourself to enter the subconscious unchallenged, like instructions being entered into a computer. And tomorrow, the program runs. There's a profound reason why cultures throughout history have emphasized evening rituals, prayers before sleep, or nightly recitations. They intuitively understood that what you carry into your subconscious at night shapes the quality of your inner and outer life. Modern neuroscience now confirms what ancient wisdom taught. The subconscious is most impressionable during sleep. And since it governs the vast majority of your behavior, scientists estimate around 95%, that means the state of your subconscious determines the course of your life far more than your conscious willpower alone. You may set intentions during the day, but if your subconscious is programmed with contradictory beliefs, you will always find yourself sabotaging your progress. Sleep listening bypasses that contradiction by aligning the subconscious directly with the intentions you want to manifest. Consider the role of emotions in this process. The subconscious does not simply respond to words, it responds to the emotional charge behind them. This is why a single traumatic experience can shape a person's behavior for years, while hundreds of neutral experiences barely leave a trace. Emotion imprints the subconscious. During sleep, the body naturally cycles through states of relaxation, repair, and subtle emotional processing. When you pair that natural openness with emotionally resonant affirmations, messages that evoke hope, safety, and empowerment, you amplify their impact. The subconscious listens, feels, and begins to adopt these states as its default programming. That is why people who practice sleep affirmations often notice changes not just in thought patterns, but in emotions. They wake up feeling lighter, calmer, more confident, as though something has shifted at the core of their being. Another layer to consider is the continuity between nighttime programming and daytime behavior. Many people wonder why they keep repeating the same mistakes even after consciously deciding to change. The reason is simple. Conscious decisions cannot override subconscious programming unless they are consistently reinforced. Think of the subconscious as the autopilot of your life. If the autopilot is set to fly north, you can consciously steer south for a short while, but as soon as you relax, the autopilot pulls you back north. Listening at night resets that autopilot. Over time, the subconscious absorbs enough new input that the default direction of your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors changes. Instead of being dragged back into fear or procrastination, you are naturally guided toward growth, creativity, or resilience. Neuroscientists studying neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, have demonstrated that repeated input reshapes the brain's physical structure. New synaptic connections form, old ones weaken, and patterns of activation shift. Sleep is already a time when the brain consolidates memories and prunes unused connections. By introducing positive input during this process, you essentially guide the brain's natural reorganization toward alignment with your goals. The subconscious listens, and the brain rewires accordingly. What makes this practice so powerful is its effortlessness. Unlike waking affirmations, where the conscious mind may resist or argue, nighttime listening requires no active struggle. You do not need to force belief. You simply allow the subconscious to hear and absorb. Over time, as the subconscious accepts new programming, the conscious mind begins to align with it naturally. Thoughts that once felt foreign, like I am capable or I deserve happiness, begin to feel familiar, comfortable, and true. This is because the subconscious has rehearsed them so often that they become part of your internal landscape. Think of musicians, athletes, or performers who visualize their practice before sleep. Studies show that mental rehearsal can activate the same neural pathways as physical practice. Their subconscious rehearses and their body follows. In the same way, when you rehearse being confident, resilient, or peaceful through sleep listening, your subconscious rehearses and your waking self follows. You begin to embody the qualities you once only imagined. This is not magic. It is not fantasy. It is the simple yet profound truth that the subconscious listens when you sleep, and because it listens, it rewires. The inputs may be subtle, but over time, the transformation is undeniable. The person who falls asleep to affirmations of peace begins to live with greater calm. The person who sleeps with messages of abundance begins to perceive opportunities instead of obstacles. The person who programs gratitude at night begins to awaken each morning with a sense of quiet joy, all because the subconscious, ever awake, ever listening, has been given a new script to follow. Repetition and emotion are the two great levers of transformation when it comes to the subconscious mind, and they work in harmony to create deep and lasting change. To understand this, you must first recognize the difference between the conscious and subconscious parts of your mind. The conscious mind, the one you are aware of during your waking hours, is analytical, logical, and highly critical. It thinks in terms of reason, comparison, and judgment. It asks, does this make sense? Can I prove this? Is this realistic? It acts as a gatekeeper, filtering what it accepts. The subconscious, on the other hand, does not argue. It does not analyze. It does not reject. It simply accepts and stores. And from that storage, it creates automatic patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior that play out in your daily life. This is why most of your actions and responses happen without conscious thought, because they are governed by subconscious programming that has been reinforced over years. Now, how does that programming get written in the first place? It is written through repeated exposure. A single thought or suggestion may not sink deeply into the subconscious because the conscious mind is quick to dismiss it. But when that thought is repeated over and over, especially when it carries strong emotional weight, the conscious filter begins to weaken, and the subconscious accepts it as truth. Think about how you learned your first language. You did not learn it through logical reasoning. You learned it through endless repetition. hearing the same sounds, words, and phrases again and again, often in emotional contexts of love, need, or comfort. The words became part of you because repetition carved them into the neural circuits of your brain, and emotion gave them urgency and meaning. The same principle applies to every belief you hold today. If you believe you are capable, it is because you heard and felt that message repeatedly until it was etched into your subconscious. If you believe you are not good enough, it is likely because that message was repeated too, often accompanied by the sting of shame, rejection, or failure. Repetition alone builds pathways in the brain, but emotion energizes those pathways, making them stronger and more dominant. This is why a single highly emotional event, a trauma, a great success, a heartbreak, can shape you more than years of ordinary experiences. The emotional intensity imprints the subconscious with such force that the memory and the belief connected to it become enduring. Consider how habits form. At first, you make a conscious effort to do something new, whether it's exercising, practicing gratitude, or learning an instrument. In the beginning, the effort feels awkward because your subconscious programming is not yet aligned with the new behavior. But with repetition, the behavior becomes easier, smoother, and eventually automatic. That shift into automaticity is the subconscious taking over. Once it accepts the repeated behavior as part of your identity, you no longer need conscious willpower to sustain it. The subconscious runs the program effortlessly in the background. This is why repetition is so powerful. It transforms effort into identity, practice into second nature. But repetition without emotion is mechanical. You could repeat affirmations all day long. I am happy, I am happy, I am happy. Yet if those words are lifeless, if they are not infused with any emotional energy, the subconscious will not be impressed. The subconscious responds to feeling, not just words. Words are symbols, emotion is the charge that makes them real. If you speak affirmations with genuine emotion, if you allow yourself to feel the joy, the gratitude, the empowerment behind the words, then you activate the subconscious in a far deeper way. It is as though the emotion opens the vault and stamps the message onto the inner fabric of your mind. This is why visualization is so effective when paired with affirmations or repeated thoughts. When you visualize vividly, engaging your senses, imagining the sights, sounds, textures, and feelings, you create an emotional experience that the subconscious accepts as real. The brain cannot easily distinguish between something vividly imagined and something physically experienced. In both cases, similar neural circuits fire. Repetition of that vivid, emotionally charged imagery strengthens the neural pathways until the subconscious begins to treat the imagined reality as your new baseline of truth. Over time, your behavior, choices, and perceptions shift to align with that truth, and your external reality begins to follow suit. Take the example of fear. Many people are trapped in cycles of fear, not because the danger is real in the present moment, but because the subconscious has been repeatedly programmed with fear. A child who repeatedly hears warnings like, "Don't do that," "You'll get hurt," or "You will never succeed at that," begins to associate the world with danger and failure. Each repetition, especially if spoken in moments of high emotion, reinforces the subconscious program. As an adult, that person may hesitate, procrastinate, or sabotage themselves without knowing why. The program of fear is running automatically in the background, but the reverse is also true. When you repeatedly pair empowering suggestions with positive emotion, "I am safe," "I am capable," "I am worthy," you begin to rewire the subconscious for courage, trust, and confidence. The old fear pathways weaken through lack of use, while the new empowered pathways grow stronger with each repetition. Neuroscience calls this process Hebbian learning. Neurons that fire together wire together. Each time a thought is repeated, the neurons associated with that thought strengthen their connections. Each time the thought is charged with emotion, the connections are reinforced even more strongly. Over time, these connections become highways in the brain, default routes that the subconscious mind takes automatically. This is why it is so difficult to change ingrained habits and beliefs through sheer willpower alone. The subconscious has already built well-worn pathways that lead to the same old results. But by introducing new thoughts, repeated consistently and paired with emotion, you begin to build alternative pathways. At first, these are like small trails in the forest, but with repetition, they widen, solidify, and eventually become the main roads. The subconscious does not care whether the repeated thought is positive or negative, empowering or destructive. It simply accepts whatever is offered. If you constantly repeat, "I am not good enough," with the heavy emotion of sadness or shame, the subconscious wires that belief deeply into your identity. If you constantly repeat, "I am resilient and capable," with the uplifting emotion of gratitude or excitement, the subconscious wires that belief instead. The mechanism is the same, the content is up to you. This is why self-talk is so crucial. Every repeated statement you make about yourself is programming the subconscious, and every emotion you attach to it magnifies its power. Advertising agencies have long understood this principle. They do not simply show you a product once and expect you to buy it. They repeat the message endlessly, pairing it with emotional imagery, happiness, success, love, belonging. Over time, the repeated emotionally charged association lodges in your subconscious, and you find yourself drawn to the product, often without knowing why. If repetition and emotion can shape your buying habits, imagine what they can do for your self-beliefs and personal growth when applied deliberately. Even traumatic memories illustrate this principle. The subconscious records not just the event, but the emotional intensity surrounding it. A single traumatic experience can replay endlessly in the mind, not because the event itself repeats, but because the emotional charge was so powerful that the subconscious locked it in as a dominant program. Healing from trauma often involves revisiting that memory, reframing it, and introducing new emotions to weaken its grip. Again, the mechanism is repetition plus emotion, this time in the service of release and reprogramming. When you look at spiritual traditions, motivational teachings, or even religious practices, you find the same principle everywhere. Mantras are repeated thousands of times, often with deep devotion and emotion. Prayers are spoken daily, paired with feelings of faith and surrender. Rituals are enacted regularly with symbolic gestures that evoke strong emotions. These are not random practices, they are systematic methods of programming the subconscious. Through repetition and emotion, beliefs are instilled so deeply that they shape identity, behavior, and even perception of reality. Modern psychology has also confirmed the role of repetition and emotion in shaping identity. Cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, relies on repeated practice of new thoughts and behaviors, often paired with emotional reinforcement. Over time, these repeated practices change the subconscious patterns that cause suffering. Similarly, athletes use repetition and visualization to program their subconscious for success. They rehearse the same motions endlessly, and they pair those rehearsals with the emotional intensity of winning until their subconscious runs the program automatically during competition. The subconscious is like a vast, fertile field. Repetition is the act of planting seeds again and again until they take root. Emotion is the water and sunlight that nourishes those seeds, helping them grow strong and resilient. If you plant seeds of negativity, watered with the emotion of fear or anger, the field will yield weeds that choke out your potential. If you plant seeds of empowerment, watered with the emotion of love, joy, and gratitude, the field will yield a harvest of strength, peace, and creativity. It is important to remember that this process does not happen overnight. Just as one drop of water does not carve a canyon, one repetition does not rewire the subconscious. It is the steady, consistent repetition, combined with genuine emotional energy, that transforms. Over weeks, months, and years, the subconscious is reshaped, and with it, your identity, habits, and destiny. You become what you repeatedly think and feel. You live the reality your subconscious has been taught to accept. When you bring awareness to this process, you begin to see how much of your current life is the result of unconscious repetition and emotion. The beliefs you hold, the fears you carry, the habits you practice, they were all reinforced by repeated thoughts and emotionally charged experiences. But awareness also brings freedom, because the same mechanism that built your current programming can be used to create new programming. By deliberately repeating empowering thoughts, paired with authentic emotional engagement, you can write a new script for your subconscious to follow. This is why practices like gratitude journaling, affirmations, visualization, and meditation are so effective when done consistently. They are not about tricking yourself or pretending. They are about repeating new, empowering inputs with enough emotional energy to impress the subconscious. Over time, the subconscious accepts them, rewires your neural pathways, and begins to run new programs automatically. And as those new programs run, your perception of reality shifts, your behavior aligns, and your external circumstances reflect the change within. One night can plant a life-changing seed, and to grasp the depth of this truth, you need to look closely at how the subconscious works and how quickly it responds to new input when the conditions are right. People often believe that transformation requires years of hard work, endless struggle, or a lifetime of practice. While it is true that consistent effort reinforces change, it is equally true that the subconscious does not need decades to shift. It needs the right moment, the right impression, and the right environment. When those come together, even a single night of intentional programming can initiate a cascade of changes that ripple through the mind, the body, and ultimately the external world you live in. The subconscious is like fertile soil that has been waiting silently for a seed, and once that seed is planted, nature itself takes over the process of growth. You don't have to sit and watch every root grow beneath the surface. You simply know that the seed has taken hold, and in time it will break through. Think about how a single event can change the course of someone's life. A child who hears just one phrase of encouragement from a teacher may carry it for decades as fuel for their confidence. A person who survives a traumatic event can have their entire worldview altered in the span of minutes. One night of falling in love can set the trajectory for a lifetime. These moments demonstrate the power of a single impression when it resonates with the subconscious. Now imagine that instead of leaving those impressions to chance, you deliberately craft them, feeding your subconscious an intentional, empowering suggestion at the exact moment when it is most receptive during sleep. That is when the walls of the analytical mind are down, when the subconscious is open and pliable, and when the messages delivered to it sink in without resistance. One night of such intentional programming can be enough to spark the shift that leads to entirely new ways of thinking and living. When you go to sleep listening to affirmations, meditations, or guided visualizations, you are not simply passing time with pleasant sounds. You are setting into motion the mechanism by which new neural pathways are formed. As your conscious mind drifts, your subconscious begins to absorb every suggestion, every repeated phrase, every emotionally charged image. It is as though you are handing a script directly to the part of your mind that runs most of your life. If that script is one of limitation and fear, then your subconscious continues to create a reality of limitation and fear. But if the script is one of empowerment, abundance, health, or joy, then the subconscious begins to organize your inner world around that vision. And because your outer world is a reflection of your inner state, you begin to see tangible evidence of change. All of this can begin in just one night, the moment you decide to introduce a new seed into the soil of your subconscious. Consider the science of neuroplasticity. The brain is not fixed, it is constantly rewiring itself based on the experiences and inputs it receives. When you listen to something repeatedly, neurons fire in specific patterns, and the more they fire together, the stronger their connection becomes. This is how habits and beliefs are built. But neuroplasticity also means that the brain is ready to form new connections the moment new inputs are provided. The first time you expose your subconscious to a powerful new suggestion, you are already initiating the process of rewiring. The very first night you fall asleep listening to a new set of affirmations, the first night you vividly imagine a future of freedom and fulfillment, your brain begins to form the connections necessary to support that future. That one night becomes the starting point, the seed from which an entirely new network of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors will grow. Think about how many times in history a single night altered everything. One night of decision changed the life of someone who chose to quit an addiction. One night of revelation gave birth to a great invention. One night of vision inspired leaders to create movements that shaped nations. Those nights were not the result of years of preparation in the moment itself. They were the moment when the seed was finally planted, when the subconscious aligned with a new reality, and when everything began to move in a different direction. The subconscious mind, when given a powerful enough suggestion in a receptive state, does not hesitate. It takes that suggestion and begins working immediately, influencing your thoughts, emotions, and choices from the very next morning onward. To understand why one night can be so powerful, consider the way sleep functions. Sleep is not just rest for the body. It is a period of intense activity for the brain. During sleep, memories are consolidated, emotions are processed, and new connections are strengthened while old ones are pruned. If you provide your subconscious with intentional input before and during this process, you are essentially guiding the way your brain reorganizes itself overnight. The thoughts and emotions you carry into sleep are the ones most likely to be consolidated. And if those are empowering, transformative suggestions, they are the ones that will be etched most deeply into your subconscious. In this way, one night is not just a span of hours. It is a workshop in which your brain and subconscious are actively reshaping themselves according to the blueprint you provide. Think of the metaphor of planting. A farmer does not need to plant a seed every day to get a tree. One seed placed once begins the process. The soil receives it, the moisture nourishes it, and nature ensures that it begins to grow. The farmer may return later to water it, to protect it, to nurture it, but the act of planting only takes a moment. Similarly, the subconscious does not require endless struggle to begin change. It requires a seed planted with intention in the fertile ground of sleep. That seed may be as simple as an affirmation. I am worthy of love. I am strong and capable. I create abundance effortlessly. When such a phrase is repeated with emotion and heard by the subconscious in its most open state, it takes root. The next morning, you may not yet see the tree, but something invisible has already begun beneath the surface. It is also important to recognize that one night can be enough to alter your trajectory. You may not become a completely transformed person in 12 hours, but you do not need to. What you need is a shift in direction, a new program running in the background that begins to nudge your choices, your perceptions, and your feelings. A plane changing its course by just a few degrees in one moment will land in an entirely different country hours later. Likewise, one night of reprogramming can shift your course by just enough that over weeks and months you find yourself in a reality entirely different from the one you would have reached otherwise. The magnitude of transformation often begins with the smallest shift, and that shift can happen in a single night. The subconscious is always listening, and it does not forget. When you feed it with empowering suggestions at night, it begins to replay them, not just in your dreams, but in your waking hours. You may find yourself thinking new thoughts without effort, feeling new emotions without knowing why, or noticing opportunities that you previously overlooked. These are the sprouts of the seed you planted. They may appear subtle at first, but they signal that the subconscious has accepted the new program and is beginning to act on it. Each day that follows reinforces the change, but the initial spark, the planting of the seed, can happen in one night. There is also the element of surrender that makes one night uniquely powerful. During the day, your conscious mind is active, always analyzing, doubting, questioning. At night, when you surrender to sleep, that resistance dissolves. You are no longer arguing with yourself, no longer blocking new ideas with skepticism. In that state of surrender, the subconscious accepts what it hears without resistance. This is why one night of listening can do what weeks of conscious effort cannot. The subconscious receives a suggestion cleanly, directly, and begins to work on it immediately. The act of letting go, of allowing the subconscious to do its work while you sleep, is often the missing key to transformation. Stories abound of people who experienced profound shifts after a single night of intentional programming. Someone listens to affirmations of self-love and awakens with a new sense of confidence. Another listens to messages of healing and notices a reduction in physical pain or anxiety the next day. While skeptics may dismiss these as coincidences, neuroscience explains them as the brain beginning to reorganize itself according to the new inputs. Once the subconscious receives a new program, the body follows, because the mind and body are not separate. They are one system. Thoughts influence hormones, emotions influence the nervous system, and beliefs influence behavior. The chain reaction begins as soon as the subconscious accepts the new message, and that acceptance can happen in one night. Think about the times you have gone to bed with a problem and awakened with a solution. Your conscious mind gave up the struggle, but your subconscious kept working, and by morning the answer appeared. That is the same principle at play. The subconscious never rests. When you feed it intentionally as you sleep, it continues to process, to imagine, to solve, and to rewire. A single night of directing that energy toward a specific goal can set in motion changes you may not consciously notice until they begin to accumulate, but they are real and powerful nonetheless. One night, then, is not trivial. It is the doorway. It is the moment when the subconscious is given new instructions, the moment when the soil receives the seed, the moment when the course shifts. The power of repetition will continue the growth, and emotion will nourish it. But the initial planting can be instantaneous. One night of surrender, one night of intention, one night of allowing the subconscious to listen to a new story about who you are and what you are capable of can become the beginning of a transformation that unfolds in every area of your life. When you truly understand the power that lies within your subconscious mind, you begin to realize that change is never as far away as you once believed. It doesn't require years of waiting or endless cycles of struggle or hoping that one day things will simply fall into place. Transformation begins the very moment you decide to plant a new seed. And the beauty of this process is that your subconscious is always listening, always ready, always open to the suggestions you give it, especially in those quiet hours of the night when your conscious mind has finally stepped aside. So tonight, don't carry yesterday's burdens into your dreams. Don't replay the same old story of fear, doubt, and limitation. Instead, give your subconscious something new, something empowering, something aligned with the life you truly want to create. Let every word you hear, every affirmation you allow in, every image you choose to focus on, become the blueprint for your tomorrow. Remember, neurons that fire together wire together. And when you feed your mind with elevated thoughts and elevated emotions, you are literally rewiring your brain for a new future. This is your moment to choose. This is your invitation to step beyond the familiar and enter the unknown with faith. Tonight could be the night where everything shifts, where the subconscious receives a new program and begins to align your entire being with it. Trust the process. Trust your own mind. And as you drift into sleep, know that you are not just resting, you are transforming. If this message resonated with you, commit to this practice, return to it nightly, and share it with others who need to remember the truth. Change is not only possible, it is already happening. Starting now.